back to OT Sports. Today we got our Week 11 college basketball Power 40 rankings. We got a lot to get into today. A lot of teams inside the top 10 lost this week. A lot of teams just lost, in general in the whole Power 40. So we got teams falling. We got new teams in the top 10. We got new teams in the rankings altogether. New teams in the top 25. I just wanted to say before we get started, because we do have a lot to talk about. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're new. We got college basketball, college football, NFL, NBA, and MLB. Those are kind of all the content we do, so just make sure you subscribe if you're interested in any of that. Leave a like if you're new and you enjoyed this video, and comment down below what you think about the Power 40 rankings. As always, my Discord and X are linked in the description. You can join that, you can follow that. But let's just get right into the top 40. And number 40, I have St. John's, and they've been winning some games. I know they just lost recently to Creighton, but it was on the road by 1 point. And before that, they beat Providence, who a team I had in the top 40. They aren't in the top 40 anymore, but St. John's is looking really good. They're 12-5. They're putting together, a pretty solid season altogether. They're number 34 in offense, number 47 in defense. That's very good, especially with it being Rick Pitino's first year. With the team and everything. So yeah, I got St. John's at 40. At number 39, I got NC State. Now, you guys probably think I have them a little low, but I don't know. Their efficiency numbers just aren't the best. 77th in offense, 68th in defense. They're 71 overall. I don't really like that too much. Now, they do have a very favorable record with at 12-4, so I did put them inside the top 40. They did just look alright against North Carolina. They didn't look too good, though. I mean, nothing special. They put up 54. They lost by 13, and they were at home. North Carolina is a really good team, however, but they also went on the road and only beat Louisville by 6. So NC State, I'm really not too confident in. I put them inside the top 40 just because they were pretty close to being inside the top 25 in the AP poll. So, but I'm not a huge fan of the Wolfpack this year. Gonzaga at 38. I'm also just losing. I mean, they just continue to go down. They lose to Santa Clara this week, their only game this week, and now they're sitting at 11-5 with no real non-conference good win. They have a 10-point loss to Purdue. That's really their best thing on the resume, and it's a loss. You could say the win over USC, but every good team they've played, I mean, except for USC, but USC is not really good. I mean, they've really fallen off a cliff. They're 8-9, so that's probably their best thing on the resume. They have a 5-point loss to Washington, a 13-point loss to UConn, 10-point loss to San Diego State. I mean, they just don't have a good win, and they're not gonna get one unless they go into Kentucky next month and take down the Wildcats, who have been just amazing to start this year. They've been really impressive, and they have a lot of upside, but Gonzaga just not looking the same this year with, no Drew Timme. They just don't really have that many guys who can contribute offensively. I mean, their offense actually has been alright, but the defense just hasn't been the same. The efficiency numbers, they actually aren't that bad. They're almost they're just outside the top 30 in offense, just outside the top 40 in defense. But when you look at it all together, their resume, 11-5, they have no good wins. They're in a bad conference, and they're not going to pick up any good wins in the future. So I have Gonzaga at 38. I mean, unless they go into Kentucky and beat Kentucky, but I just don't see them doing that with the way they've been playing and the way that Kentucky's been playing. Northwestern, I got that 37. The Northwestern's kind of been just sitting around this range for quite a while now. The efficiency, they're not like super high or anything. 58th in offense, 73rd in defense, but they do have some good wins. They also have some bad losses. Can't really figure out this Northwestern team. I'm just going to keep them in here for now, but they could definitely, they have a chance to just, skyrocket up the rankings, but also fall down. They looked pretty good on the road against Wisconsin. I watched most of that game, so they looked pretty impressive there. But, they have a loss to Chicago State, but they also have a win over Purdue, so it's like, let's kind of cancel out a little in my opinion. And then with not counting those, they're 12-4 record, decent efficiency-wise. They have looked good in some games. They besides Purdue and I mean they lost to Mississippi State. They beat Dayton though. That was a good win. They beat Michigan State, but they lost to Illinois and Wisconsin. So it's kind of just they're kind of just average in my opinion. I mean all their whole resume kind of cancels out in my opinion. And just doesn't really put them too special anywhere. The efficiency isn't anything crazy either, but 12-4 in the Big Ten. That's pretty good. They have some wins. So I'm gonna keep them at 37. Texas, man, Texas just does not look good. I mean, I kept them inside the top 40 because they beat Cincinnati on the road, a team who I was pretty high on. I had them in the top 40 last week, but they go on the road to West Virginia, the worst team in the Big 12 by far, and they lose. So their best win at this point is Cincinnati. They will play Baylor this week, Saturday. So they're gonna have to win that because Baylor's been really putting things together and they've been starting to look really good. Texas is gonna need a win at some point here, and they're gonna have a chance. I mean, they have a 5 game stretch. UCF this week. I'm not too worried about that. If they lose that, they're probably gonna be out of the top 40 unless they go out and beat Baylor. But then after that, Baylor, Oklahoma, BYU, and Houston, all teams that are ranked inside the top 25 for me and in the AP poll. So Texas will have a chance to prove itself. I've been saying that. And with Big 12 play finally starting up, they're going to have a lot of opportunities. They just don't look very very good as of right now. 48th in offense, 49th in defense. That's just not going to cut it, especially in the Big 12 when that conference is by far the best in the country and it's just so stacked from top to bottom. Oregon at 35, they reappeared in the top 40. They're 13-3. They've been doing pretty good. They've been winning a lot of games. I gotta respect them. So yeah, I put them in here at 35. Efficiency wise, 35th in offense, 98th in defense though. So they gotta figure it out on defense a little for me to trust them a little more. I'm not really too sure what to think about this Oregon team. Kind of a question mark for me. They have a lot of upside, I will say. And with the Pac-12 being as not as great as it has been in past years, Oregon could definitely make some noise in the Pac-12 tournament. I mean, right now they're first in the Pac-12 in the conference, and if they continue to win, they will eventually get ranked. I mean, they have the best record in the conference. The only other team ranked is Arizona, and USC has some upside, but they're already a losing record. UCLA as well. They already have a losing record. Utah and Colorado have upside too, but they just haven't really been winning the important games. So at this point, I think Oregon is probably the second best team in the Pac-12, which is crazy to say because usually the Pac-12 is pretty decent, but this year and their last year they just don't look that great. Grand Canyon at 34, they continue to win. They're 16-1, and yeah, they're looking really good. Kind of weird to say, but 59th in offense, 77th in defense. They're 56th overall in KenPom. Now, obviously, it's not going to give them as much because they haven't really played anyone, but they do have a really good win. Their only loss is to South Carolina, who's not a terrible team. They beat San Francisco, who's actually having a pretty decent year, and they also have a win over San Diego State, a team who I have inside the top 25. So Grand Canyon actually looking like a very solid team. And yeah, like I said, 16-1. They're currently on a 13-game win streak, I believe. I don't know if that's 100% right, but yeah, they're looking really good offensively, and they have a guy. I don't know how to say his name, but Tyon Grant Foster, I think that's how you say his name. He's a tall guard, and he's averaging almost 21 points per game. He's really leading the charge for the Antelope. So good for Grand Canyon, man, making some noise, getting inside the top 40. I think that was the only like I don't know how to describe it because I would say like a group of 5 team, but that's like because I kind of include for basketball, I kind of include the Mountain West, and I used to include the American. I probably still would, just because Memphis and FAU. So I kind of include the Mountain West, the American, and the what's the other one? The Big East. So besides, and then the Power Five, obviously, but that's Grand Canyon's really the second team that's made it into the top 40. The other team being James Madison, they fall out after losing. Clemson at 33, they continue to drop after losing 14th in offense, 81st in defense. They got to get it going on the defensive end. They just don't look good. They can't really get much stops. Um, and yeah, they lost to Virginia Tech on the road. They gave up 87. They also gave up 78 to Boston College. I mean, it's just Clemson's one of those teams. They have a lot of potential, but I just at this point in the year, I just can't really trust them. They haven't really impressed me all that much. Nevada at 32, they continue to win. Now I know they just lost to Boise State, but they're still 15-2, and I have Boise State right ahead of them because they just beat them. That was a good game if you watched it. Nevada lost by 8. It does hurt a little that it was at home, but they have a really interesting unranked matchup on the road against San Diego State. We'll see how they play, because if they lose that one, I might consider dropping them from the top 40 entirely. Maybe not. I mean, they'll drop down for sure, but I don't know about the outside of the whole top 40. But Nevada, it's a little bit. If I'm a little bit iffy on them, just a little bit. Efficiency wise, they have a really good defense, but the offense being outside the top 70 kind of hurts them. Boise State, I just mentioned, I have at 31. They just beat Nevada, so I felt like I had to. And they have a really good record too, 12-4. The Mountain West, like I said, New Mexico was considered for this as well. They have a lot of really good teams this year. And I'm really impressed with how the Mountain West is doing. Boise State at 12-4. The offense is just abysmal, 107, but the defense 19th. That's gonna win them some games they shouldn't win. If they can get things going on offense, maybe move the ball a little bit more, because I don't know. It's their offense just doesn't look great. I mean, they put up 60 on Nevada or 64 or whatever. It seems like they spread the ball out a lot. They just don't really have that guy to go to. Mississippi State at 30. They just took down Tennessee, I believe it was, and a lot of you guys were saying rank. I don't know. I think somebody was telling me to rank Mississippi State, and now I finally do. They're 12-4 at this point. They did just lose to Alabama, but they got a win over Tennessee. That was pretty huge in my opinion. They're now 12-4, so I have them at 30 now. And I believe they got their star player back, Tolu Smith. I believe that he was hurt for most of the year, but he is back, and he's already making a big difference on the team. 17 points per game through 4 games. I believe that was because they had a guy who got hurt, like in preseason, and that really just worried me for their success. But they've been doing really good. They've been winning a lot of games. So good for Mississippi State for doing this well without their best player. That really just goes to show how good this team is. They're 9th overall in defense and 72nd in offense, but I do expect that offensive rating to go up with their star player coming back now. So Mississippi State got a lot of upside in the SEC. I think they could definitely make some noise and definitely get inside the top 25 soon. I mean, they have a game on the road against Kentucky. I wouldn't be surprised if they go out there and win that. They have a lot of potential. So look out for Mississippi State. Alabama at 29. They're back in the top 40. The offense is still just electric. They're 11-5 now. So I felt it was they proved enough to me to get moved back inside the the top 40, and the defense is getting a lot better for Alabama. That's what I was worried about. They have the number 1 offense, but the defense was outside the top 100 for a while. They're now at 58. That's getting a lot better. They're 6th overall in KenPom, so I felt like I needed to put them here now. They're getting a lot better defensively, and the offense just continues to shine. Seton Hall at number 28. They move up they continue to move up, and they're just kind of slowly starting to creep in. They win their 2 games last week, close ones though, against Georgetown, who's not great, and on the road against Butler. Butler's okay. They got a game today against St. John, so we'll see how they play there. They also play Creighton at home on Saturday. If they can win one of those, they should be pretty set. They got a nice, tough 4-game stretch. We'll really see what they're made of. They play Seton Hall. Seton Hall plays St. John's, Creighton, Providence, and Marquette. 4 games in a row. We'll really see what they're made of there. Colorado State at 27. The Rams just dropped a game to Boise State. Boise State had a pretty big week last week. They took down Colorado State and Nevada, so I moved them up quite a bit. I didn't move them ahead of Colorado State just because Colorado State, I think, has proved more to me as of right now than Boise State, and I felt there was a couple more teams I had to rank ahead of Boise State, and I really just couldn't drop Colorado State any farther than I really did. They're 25th overall in KenPom, 17th in offense, 67th in defense. That's pretty solid. The defense needs to step it up a little bit if they want to be a legitimate team that could win a game or two in March. Dayton at 26, they are continuing to win, 13-2 now. And Dayton's really just the only team in their conference at this point. That conference, the A-10, has really just fallen off a cliff. I mean, they used to be getting, 4 or 5 teams in the tournament every year. Now, it's really just the tournament winner. Dayton, though, they're looking like they're going to win their conference. I don't know if they'll be able to get a what's the thing called when you don't win your conference and an at-large bid. That's what it's called. I don't know if they'll be able to get that at this point. I think they're going to have to prove a little bit more, but they are pretty solid KenPom-wise. 10th in offense, 87th in defense. They got to pick it up a little bit more on defense for me to officially trust them. But Dayton's looking really good. 25, I got San Diego State. I still have them ranked. The AP poll dropped them out. I kept them in just because, I know they lost on the road New Mexico. It didn't look pretty, but New Mexico's a really solid team. And I've been saying this for a while. New Mexico's one of those teams right outside the top 40, and they can pretty much seal the deal. I mean, if they want to get ranked, they have a home game against Utah State tonight. If they win that, they'll be ranked next week. Unless they lose to Air Force. But New Mexico's been kind of just creeping outside the top 40 for the past couple of weeks now. And with the win over Utah State today, they could clinch a spot in the top 40 next week. But we're not talking about New Mexico. We're talking about San Diego State. Yeah, like I said, they didn't look pretty, but New Mexico is actually a pretty solid team. It was a road game in conference. That's always tough. San Diego State, efficiency-wise, still looking really good. 50 in offense, 23rd in defense. They're looking to have another tournament season, and they look really good. Jaden Ledee, I think that's how you say it. He's really their guy on offense. They need to get a secondary shooter because he's averaging 22 points per game. Their next guy is averaging 12, so they need some other guys to step it up. Texas Tech at 24. They continue to win as well. They're 14-2, and now tomorrow they go on the road against Houston, and they got a really tough stretch coming up. 3 of these 4 being road games: Houston, BYU, Oklahoma, and TCU. That's really going to show with the Red Raiders if they're going to be a legit team this year. I think they have the potential to. If they can win 2 of those 4, they will be. That would be really impressive. 31st in offense, 43rd in defense. That's overall very solid, and I think Texas Tech could make some noise in the conference. I don't think anyone really expected it. FAU at 23. They move up like 1 or 2 spots, I think. They took care of business last week. The offense still looks very good for them. John L. Davis still leading the team in scoring. Everything's doing all right for FAU. The defense is getting a little bit better, but they got to stop losing to those teams they shouldn't be losing to. Ole Miss at 22. They move up. They move up a little as well. They took care of business last week. They I don't remember who they beat, but I know they beat the the teams that they did here. Let me look real quick. Ole Miss beat Florida in a dominating fashion. Florida was a team I considered for the top 40 last week, or it might have been the week before. Florida's actually a pretty good team. And then they took care of business against Vanderbilt. They got a really tough game Saturday on the road against Auburn. Auburn's hot, and they continue to rise up the rankings. So Ole Miss will really have a chance to prove themselves to me in that game there. Even if they keep it close, that would be pretty impressive because Auburn is a team I'm very high on. But for Ole Miss to win that, they got to figure it out defensively. They just have been looking rough, and offensively, nothing special. I mean, 44. So the efficiency-wise, they don't look great, but they are 15-1. BYU at 21. They lost to Baylor on the road. Baylor's looking like a pretty good team. Baylor's looking like they figured their stuff out. And then BYU had a pretty close game against UCF, so they kind of had a struggle week. But they have a chance to pick that back up with their next 4 games. I mean, it's just a gauntlet schedule on the Big 12. Iowa State, Texas Tech, Houston, and Texas. All 4 teams inside the top 40. Those are the next 4 games to close out the month. So they're gonna have a chance to prove themselves to me. But they're actually having a pretty good season, a lot better than I think anyone thought. Efficiency-wise, 23rd in offense, 7th in defense. That is ridiculously good. One of the best efficiency, offensive and defense in the country. I think they're sitting at 11th overall. They look really good. Iowa State at 20. They play BYU today, so that's going to be a really good game to look out for. Iowa State also plays TCU on the road Saturday. Like I said, these Big 12 teams just have a ridiculous schedule, and we got 3 of them in a row right here. Iowa State, a team I'm very high on. I think they could be a very scary team to play tournament time. The offense is figuring it out, and the defense is still second in the country. The offense is getting better and better. 63rd overall, but they were outside the top 100 at one point. So Iowa State really starting to figure things out, and they're very scared. I mean, I'm telling you, in the tournament, they're a very scary team to come across. Just because of the defense and the depth. TCU had a huge week. I mean, they were at 40. They were in the 36 to 40 range for about since the beginning of the year. They really just had it moved, and now they're all the way at 19. They had a huge week last week, taking down Oklahoma and Houston, 2 teams ranked inside the AP poll top 10 as of last week. TCU with a huge week. So they got a huge boost, and now they play Cincinnati on the road today, and then also Iowa State at home. Iowa State's got a tough schedule this week. TCU and BYU both. I mean, the team that's ranked 1 spot ahead and the team that's ranked 1 spot behind. But yeah, TCU, they're looking really good. They just got 2 huge wins. Now they were both pretty close. I mean, the Oklahoma game they had control for most of it. 26th in offense. 39th in defense. That's overall pretty solid. Creighton at 18. Efficiency-wise, they're still very good. 25th in offense, 13th in defense. The Blue Jays, they should. I think they should be. They shouldn't be this. I don't know how to word this. They shouldn't be. I feel like they should just not be losing some of the games that they've been losing. Losing to UNLV, that's tough. Losing to Oklahoma or Villanova earlier. The Marquette loss is understandable, but they also lost to Colorado State. I don't know. I feel like there's some fluke. I feel like Creighton's in for a big run, and they have a chance. Number 1, UConn. It is on the road. They play them tomorrow, and then they also play Seton Hall on the road Saturday. 2 teams that are ranked in the top 40. Creighton, Baylor Shireman, Trey Alexander, Ryan Kalkbrenner, that's kind of their big 3. Besides that, though, they really don't have anyone else, which does worry me a little bit. Marquette at 17. I can't figure out this Marquette team. I mean, they're 11-5 or 12-5 at this point, but I don't know. I mean, they're kind of on a cold streak a little bit. Shaka Smart's got to get them going. Tyler Kolek has really taken a step down, in my opinion, from last year. For the Golden Eagles, but 33rd in offense, 15th in defense. The defense has been a lot better than I would have thought for Marquette, and the offense has been kind of worse than I've thought for Marquette. So really just a flip from last year. I think they still have the potential. Kolik's got to step it up a little bit. He hasn't been all that amazing to start the year. Utah State at 16. Really liking this Utah State team. They continue to get it done. They're 16-1, but they got a road game against New Mexico tonight. It's going to be a really tough game, but if they can win that, they will continue to move up the rankings because 16-1, the Mountain West is a very stacked conference this year. One of the better conferences in the country. Utah State 47th in offense, 46th in defense. Very very solid across the board. Oklahoma at 15. They they haven't been anything too crazy. I'm not really sure what to think about this Oklahoma team. They go 0-2 this week, losing to TCU and Kansas, both on the road though. Both teams inside the top 25. But I don't know about this Oklahoma team. They just something about them. I feel like they might be a little bit fraudulent, just a little bit efficiency-wise. They're not the best. And yeah, I don't know. They still have a really good record. I mean, they have a pretty good resume too. They got a lot of good wins, but I don't know. Something about this Oklahoma team, it just worries me a little bit for tournament time. I'm not saying they're gonna get upset, but efficiency-wise, they've been pretty solid. 42nd in offense, 21st in defense. I'm just not too sure about this Oklahoma team. Illinois, they've been doing all right without Terrence Shannon. Obviously, that's a pretty unfortunate situation. They win against Michigan State by 3, but then lose to Maryland. 12-4 still. Having no Terrence Shannon does really hurt them because he was obviously their best player. 11th in offense, 32nd in defense. However, that's still very solid. They're still looking like a good team without Terrence Shannon, but the offensive potential is just lowered a little bit just because he's not playing anymore. Unfortunate situation. Obviously, I'm not saying. Obviously, what he did was wrong. I'm not saying it wasn't, but it's just unfortunate that things that happened and things played out the way they did for Illinois because they were looking to have a really good year. I'm not saying they won't have a good year because they're still a really good team even without him. They just don't look. They don't have as high of a potential, in my opinion, to make a big run in the tournament because Terrence Shannon's a really good basketball player. So that sucks for Illinois. But what he did was wrong, and obviously I understand with him. He shouldn't be able to play because he can't do that. So unlucky, but I still think Illinois is a really good team, and they still have a lot of potential to do great things this season. Arizona at 13. I can't figure out this Arizona team. They lose to Washington State on the road. That was their only game this week. They're still, fifth in offense, third in defense. That is ridiculously good. They're the only team inside the top 5 offensive and defensive efficiency-wise. So that's really good, but I don't know. They're 12-4 in the Pac-12. The Pac-12 is really having an off year this year. That's just not where I would like to see it for them. Auburn at 12. Auburn is now one of 2 teams inside the top 10 offensive and defensive efficiency-wise. We just talked about the other one, Arizona. Auburn, 9th in offense, 6th in defense. The SEC is a very good conference this season, and Auburn is 4th overall in efficiency. They continue to win. Bruce Pearl is really coaching them up. They continue to win, 14-2 on the year. They really, besides the App State loss, they don't have a bad loss. Their only other loss is to Baylor on the road. First game of the season by 6, and Baylor's inside the top 10 as of right now, so that's looking like a lot better of a loss than it was earlier when I was kind of low on Baylor. But Auburn's really just been blowing through the SEC. Now, they really haven't played anyone all that good. They'll play Ole Miss at home on Saturday, but I really want to see them play Alabama. That's going to be a great game. Rivalry. But I want to see them play, Tennessee or Kentucky, one of them at least, just to kind of see how legit this Auburn team is. I am very high on Auburn. I think they Could definitely, be in the top 10 next week. I think they could definitely win the SEC. I mean, Tennessee and Kentucky, I am very high on, but I think Auburn is just as good as those two teams in my opinion. But I just got to put them a little bit lower, just because I think I've seen a little bit more from Tennessee and Kentucky, resume wise. But efficiency wise, Auburn's one of the best in the country. Memphis continuing to win, 15-2 now, and they're sitting just outside the top 10. Memphis, they continue to win, but efficiency-wise, they're not the best. 45th in offense, 59th in defense. I think if Memphis finishes with a pretty high seed, they could potentially be on upset alert in the tournament. And that's no hate to Memphis. I don't know. The efficiency is just not where I'd like to see from a team that's ranked 11th in the country. But moving into the top 10, number 10 I got Wisconsin. Wisconsin continues to win, 13-3, sixth overall in offense, 27th in defense. That's very solid. As of right now, they are probably the second best team in the Big Ten. So good for Wisconsin, because I think I had them projected to finish like 7th or 8th, maybe 6th in the Big Ten this season. And as of right now, they're looking like the second best team in that league. So good for the Badgers. Baylor at 9. The offense looks very good for Baylor. They're continuing to win. They just got 2 big wins this week against BYU and Cincinnati. Really gave me a little bit more faith in the Bears. Baylor, 4th overall in offense. The defense is getting a lot better too, up to 57th. At one point, they were outside the top 100, so good for them. The Blue Devils at 8. They continue to win as well, and like I said, they've been moving up the past couple weeks, and I'm really starting to trust Duke a lot more. They're all the way up at 7 now. I think Duke could definitely make some noise. They're looking really good. Not Terrence Shannon. Jared McCain is really stepping up as a freshman. He's getting a lot more confident. He's shooting the ball well. 7th in offense, 30th in defense. That is very good. Kentucky at 7. Now I believe they lost. I'm trying to remember who it was to. But they did lose this week. Oh yeah, it was A&M on the road in overtime. This is a tough one. A&M's a pretty solid team. This week they got 2 pretty tough games actually. But they do have them both at home. I do expect them to win both, but I wouldn't be shocked if they dropped one of them. Mississippi State and Georgia. Mississippi State just outside the top 25, and Georgia was a team I considered ranking, but it just missed the cut for the top 40. So Kentucky will have their hands full with those two, but efficiency-wise, they're still, very solid. 8th in offense. Defense has got to go up a little bit for me to trust them. 54th. Not going to cut it if you want to be considered a legitimate team. Houston at 6. Now, this is the story. Not been high on Houston. They didn't have anything on their resume, and their first 2 real Big 12 games, because West Virginia doesn't count. West Virginia's the worst team in the Big 12 by far. They're the only, in my opinion, bad team in the Big 12. But in Houston's 2 first Big 12 games, they drop both of them. Iowa State's losing by 4 and TCU losing by 1. Now, they were both on the road, and those teams are top 20 teams, and they were close. So I will give Houston that. The defense, I will say, looks amazing for Houston. But they almost came back in that Iowa State game. They were struggling early. And then the TCU, the offense had to do a little bit more just because TCU's defense wasn't as good as Iowa State's. Iowa State and Houston have the number 1 and number 2 defense, so that was a pretty ugly game. But TCU offensively is a lot better than Iowa State. So Houston, the offense had to pick it up a little bit more, and they did. So Houston showed me some flashes of being a very good team. They did lose both the games, though, so I had to drop them. But they did look pretty solid in both those games. I know they lost both of them, but in-conference games are always tough, especially on the road. Those 2 teams are top 20 teams. So I'm going to give Houston a little bit of points just because of how close. They were in the games at the end. So I did like that from Houston, but obviously they did lose, so I had to drop them. They're still number one though in KenPom, first in defense, 18th in offense. That's very good. Tennessee at 5. Um, they lost one too, I believe, but I didn't drop them. They lost on the road against Mississippi State, but they did beat Georgia on the road. Those are two tough stretch, and Kentucky's gonna have to go through that stretch too. So we'll really see, in my opinion, who's the better of these two because they both. I mean, Tennessee just played those two, and Kentucky will have to play those two this week. So we'll really see who's the best SEC team. I'm kind of back and forth on who I think it is. As of right now, I got Tennessee, but Kentucky definitely has more upside, in my opinion, than Tennessee to make it far in the tournament. But Tennessee is top 20 in offense and defense, and I've said it in the past. If you want to be considered a real contender, you have to be top 20 in offense and defense, and Tennessee does that. 20th in offense, 4th in defense. That's very good. So I got Tennessee at 5, Kansas at 4. Kansas is a team I'm really worried about. They have the star power, which I think will get it done in the regular season, but once March comes around, I would not be shocked if Kansas lost in the second round, maybe even the first round. I mean, if they end up with like a 2 or a 3 seed, I don't think they'll end up with a 3 seed unless they really collapse a little bit, but I mean, which could happen. I'm not high on Kansas at all. If they end up with a 2 seed, I could see it. I could see the upset happening for Kansas. Just, I mean, there's no depth on that team. I mean, it's just all it is. It's Hunter Dickinson, KJ Adams, and Kevin McCullough. Without those three, they got nothing else. Literally nothing else. Nobody else is doing anything for them. They got no depth whatsoever, no bench. If they get in foul trouble, who knows what's going to happen? If they have an off night with those three, they're not going to win the game. So there's just a little bit too much there pointing negatively for Kansas. Efficiency-wise, also 40th in offense, 11th in defense. I mean, you really don't see that low of a number with these top 10 teams. Now, you can see it a little bit. You see it with Baylor's defense. But, I mean, Baylor just got into the top 10. So, Kansas, I believe, is the lowest ranked of these top 10 teams in KenPom. Actually, they're one spot ahead of Kentucky, but, besides Kentucky, they're the lowest ranked. So I'm very worried about Kansas. They have a really good resume though, so I have to keep them high. They're 14-2 in the Big 12, so I gotta keep them high because they're in the best conference. They have a really good resume and they're winning. But they did just lose. Who did they lose to? I'm trying to remember. They just lost to somebody this past week. They lost to UCF on the road. They did beat Oklahoma though, so I didn't drop them too. But I'm like ready to drop Kansas. They just don't impress me. UNC at 3 has been very impressive. They continue to win. They just took down NC State on the road. I thought there was a chance they could lose that one. UNC is 13-3. They're top 20 in both offense and defense, 16th in offense, 5th in defense. And losing Caleb Love has really just opened up this team. They play like a team. I mean, they're just looking really good. Armando Bacon and R.J. Davis have been amazing. And they got a couple supporting guys, too. Harrison Ingram's been very good. So UNC looking like a top 3 team. They're looking elite. I really like UNC this season. Number 2, Purdue. They lost on the road against Nebraska. It's a tough one, so I had to drop them down one. But they're still 15-2. They have probably the best resume in in the country. They have the number 1 overall strength of schedule. So they obviously have the number 1 overall strength of record as well. And yeah, I mean they're 15-2, second in offense, 22nd in defense. If they can get that defense a little bit up, but they'll be in that top 20 for both threshold. But they just this Purdue team looks different now that I do worried because they do tend to lose to the teams that they shouldn't lose to. So that does worry me come tournament time. But when they play the good teams, they just look so good. I don't know. It's kind of weird. Maybe that's a coaching thing, but I mean this Purdue team looks a lot better than last year. And last year they were a 1 seed. They lost in the first round, obviously, but the guard play is so much better from last year. It's crazy. Fletcher Loyer, Braden Smith. They got another guy too, all averaging 10 points per game, and Zach Edey obviously doing his thing. But UConn at number 1, they were the only team inside the top 5 that didn't lose, so they kind of just by default moved up to number 1, and I like it. UConn 15-2. They're obviously the defending champ, so props for them for still being this good. They lost a lot of their players, but Tristan Newton I believe is back. They're third in offense, 44th in defense, though. So that does worry me. If they can figure that out a little, I think they will. I mean, I trust this UConn team. We saw them do good last year. They need Donovan Clingan to get back, though. He was really good for them. He's hurt. They've been dealing with a lot of injuries, but offensively averaging 83 points per game. They're 15-2 in a very good Big East conference. They play Creighton tomorrow at home. I do expect them to win. They've I think they deserve the number 1 spot as of right now. Do I think they're the best team in the country? Probably not. But I don't know. It's pretty tough. I mean, a lot of these in my opinion, the top 8 are really all compact here at this point. You could just kind of switch them around a little bit. I mean, I would say there's tiers to it. I think you could probably switch around the top 2. You could probably switch around 3 through 6. Actually, you could probably switch around 3. Yeah, I could say you could switch around 1 through 2. You could switch around 3 through 6. You could switch around 7 through 8. But I think it's pretty close, 1 to 8. There's a little bit of a drop off when you get to Baylor and Wisconsin, but in my opinion, they're still deserving top 10, just not on the level of the other 8. So yeah, that's gonna do it for the Power 40 Week 11 college basketball rankings. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like on it. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Comment down below what you think of the rankings. Do you think I snubbed a team? Do you think I'm overrating a team? Let me know. Down below, as always, my Discord and X are linked in the description. You can join that, you can follow that, whatever you'd like to do. But I will see you guys tomorrow with NFL divisional round picks. Yeah, that's going to do it. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. See you guys with that tomorrow.